Okay, it's 4:03. Let's see who's here. Peggy and Gail and Marissa. Okay, well, that sounds like a good place to start. So why don't we start with talking about the art show? And I've asked Will to unmute, or Robert to unmute everybody. So why don't we just start with that, and people could jump in, and if it gets unruly, we'll just mute everyone back. So can you unmute everyone, Robert or Will, please?
So they all have the option to unmute themselves if they
Okay.
want to.
Thank you so much, Will. All right, so let's just talk about the art show. Anything that went particularly well or didn't go well, or in other words, any feedback? And that includes anyone from the public who was at the show as well. I know Liz was there.
I'll say something. I think that on balance, the show went exceedingly well. We had around 60 artists, which was a spectacular number given our past two shows. And I think that just part of it was there seemed to be a lot of last minute hassle trying to figure out what we were going to do regarding whether we would have tables, if we would have easels. I think that the system that we came up with, measuring the spaces and then having them numbered with chalk and assigning artists to those spaces, worked very well. So we know that we don't have to purchase easels. We don't have to worry about tables other than getting a table for CB8 and a couple of chairs. I think that we were lucky. The weather was great. We had a lot of the public come. We had about 10 to 12 board members join us in addition to the committee members. And I think that that too was a positive because we haven't had that in the past. So it seems like there is a growing sense of concern. And I think the other thing that was a positive is that with that outreach, we reached a lot of the community and we found out what their concerns were.
Yeah, we had about 45 to 50 people sign up for emails from the board that day, which was really nice. And we had information about the board. I don't know if people took it, but people stopped to talk about it and give us their concerns. I agree that everyone brought their own stuff to display their photos or drawings or sculpture or whatever it was that they were selling on. And that was really nice. I mentioned that we were talking about a craft fair, and people who had crafty kinds of things like cards or jewelry were excited about the possibility, and people seem to be very interested in participating in our next show. And marking out the spaces made it fair and even for everybody, which was nice. And I think they appreciated lunch from Chick-fil-A as well. So all of that, except for the people who were opposed to it philosophically, and there weren't too many of them. So I think it was all good. Anyone else have any feedback about that? So I think in the future we will use the same letter and ask people to bring their own stuff, and we'll get there. It was easy enough to straight on the back, notwithstanding, to mark out all of the spaces. And then Peggy did a great job of keeping track of who came and having them pick their own spots basically with what was left. So I think all of that worked out well, and the artists felt attended to, I hope, and appreciated. So I think all of that was important. Anyone else with any comments or feedback?
So I thought it was interesting that we had seemed like an even bigger crowd at a show that did not include music, that tends to bring people in because they can hear the sound. So I thought that's great. So we don't have to have music. We could if we want. It's an option. But it seems to be working as a standalone program, and which I thought was terrific, because that's normally what art shows are, just usually focused just on the art, but be that as it may. So I was really happy about the size of the audience. Thanks, Marissa, right here for your publicity, and thanks to patch.com. Anyway, so I think it was also, the thing I also liked was we had a good mix of artists. I was a little concerned ahead of time it was going to be all earrings. And happily we did have a mix, an interesting mix of participants. And it's something to remember in the future, that we want to be sure that for the art show, there is a range. We're looking for a range of different art styles and media. So it seemed to be quite a hit. And so it went well.
Good. I think so too. Anyone else have any comments before we move on to next projects? Good. And everyone deserves a huge thank you, because all of your participation really matters. And that includes Will and Robert and Zachary. So very, very many thanks. And to everyone from the public who actually attended, because an art show without artists is no good, and an art show without a public is no good. So thank you. So do we want to let's talk about next things going maybe in order of the months and where we could be indoors, outdoors. So we were talking about potentially having a craft show in February before Valentine's Day. Is that something to pursue?
Indoors, you mean? Or
We'd have to do it indoors. It's too cold in February, even if there's no snow. So someone suggested talking to the Church of the Holy Trinity on 88th Street, where we've had board meetings. I don't know. I'm not sure, Will, maybe you know it, or Peggy or Gail, about accessibility to the church. Was it ever an issue?
I think it was a problem for Wilma, if I recall correctly. Accessibility wasn't working. There's also the Church of the Heavenly Rest, and I know their executive director I can call Ruth Ann, because they have a great room.
That would be great.
Terrific.
That would be really good. And I know Lori has connections with the St. Ignatius. So since she teaches there, and she came to the art show, so maybe if it doesn't work with Heavenly Rest, which by the way had the best coffee shop name I've ever heard of. It was the Heavenly Rest Stop before they renamed it. In any event, and also last year, I think Zachary had spoken to Lenox Hill Neighborhood House, who was very interested in hosting something until COVID reared its ugly head and everyone pulled back and was afraid. And that's something to consider as well, since they're anticipating a wave in the winter and people are not getting vaccinated. So, and this new variant is even more contagious than Omicron was. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye out, but we could still start looking and make plans based on good health. Okay, so are we thinking about the Saturday? What is it, the 11th or the 4th? I'm thinking those are Saturdays.
Let me just mention that it seems as if Holy Trinity must have an accessible entrance, though, because it's a voting site in this midterm election, which would not be allowed at all if they didn't have accessibility for wheelchairs and other equipment.
Interesting, because I
They
do
do have a
remember Wilma, right? Will, you would know.
She did have concerns with it, but they do have a ramp
they
that just
do?
somebody
Oh.
has to manually operate. That was the problem, I think, was that nobody was available to operate it for her. But it's also been several years since that happened.
Well, maybe we could look into that. Would you be able to do that, Will or Robert?
Yeah,
Or
we can reach out to Erlinda.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so the Saturday that we're planning this, I'm assuming a Saturday is a good idea, especially at a church. That, what is it, the 11th, the 4th?
Let's just see. The 4th and the 11th.
Okay, so either one?
I would go for the 4th, just to give people enough time.
Okay. Any disagreement or comments? It doesn't matter to me.
That is just pushing, it's less than 3 months. And when we spoke previously about doing planning and advanced planning. We talked about having at least 3 months of planning. That's just a week shy.
Oh,
Yeah,
then how about the 11th?
It's fine.
That's not the 3-day weekend. It's not President's Day weekend, right?
I think it's the next one.
Yeah.
President's Day is the 20th.
All right. So then let's look at the 11th and plan for that, pending a blizzard of Omicron or something else or snow. Okay. Then I asked Mick to join us, and I know he has another meeting or came out. So I think we did a play reading in the fall of 2021, which I think was a nice experience and a nice opportunity for people who don't get to the theater. So Mick, do you have ideas? We talked briefly, you and I, do you have any ideas about things that we could do together after your Irish or your festival is over, of course?
Yeah, hi folks. I hope you're all well. It's nice to see you all again. Right now, I'm up the walls, basically planning this first Irish Theatre Festival, which is in its 15th year. Origin Theatre Company is currently celebrating its 20th anniversary, which is pretty good considering how long certain businesses last across the city. So we're very proud to be turning 20 and almost an adult.
Yeah, congratulations. Almost drinking age.
Almost drinking age, yeah. This year we are in the middle of planning First Irish 2023. I'm excited because we have 2 great shows from Ireland coming over to the Upper East Side. So hopefully we can get as many people from CB8 and all your neighbours as possible down to see them at 59 East 59. I know it's as far south and west as you can get in the community board, but it's still part of the community board 8. So
yeah, it's on the right side of 59th
just
Street.
on the correct side of it there. Yeah. So I'm thrilled that that's going to be happening. There's 2 companies. One is called Fish Amble from Dublin. They're regulars over here. They're a wonderful company, bringing Eugene O'Brien's latest play, Heaven, which is currently on in Ireland at the moment. And another company that's coming is called Big Telly from the north of Ireland. They're bringing a play over. It's currently on in London right now, called Frankenstein's Monster is Drunk and the Sheep Have All Jumped the Fences. I just want to see it just for the title. I think it's hilarious. So, but I know it's going to be pretty special also. So I will absolutely be letting everyone on the board know about these 2 events. I'll be performing at the Irish Rep, my alma mater, down on 22nd Street. So, of course, I'll be letting you all know about that. We have a few events going on at the Cell Theatre on 23rd Street down in Chelsea. I'm putting together an all-female mini festival of one-woman plays. So that's going to be happening at the Cell. The Irish Arts Centre on the west side, we have a number of events going on there. We have a number of new works reading series going on, as well as a performance by the Cross Border Orchestra of Ireland, who will be performing at Carnegie Hall in March. They'll be performing online at the Irish Arts Centre around the 30th of January with the Fairfield Youth Choir. So we have a big month and a lot of plans in the works right now. Obviously, after January, I would really love to start working closely again with the community board. I really enjoyed working and being on the board, of course, for 5 years in my previous life as a bar owner. And I would much rather come back in this new installation as a theatre artist to work with the community board more closely. The event we held last year in 2021, I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was the first event I think I actually had done in my new role as artistic director. So I've learned a lot since then, I think, and willing to learn more and more as we go along. So yeah, I'd be down to get involved with anything at all that you think could kind of fly here on the Upper East Side. I'm really interested in bringing more theatre to the neighbourhood. Again, as I said, 59 East 59 is great, but for a lot of folks living further north in the neighbourhood, it's not exactly the easiest place to get to for some people. So that's something that I'm really interested in doing with you folks. I just heard about the possibility of doing something around St. Valentine's Day. I think that's a great idea. I think anytime you have an opportunity to hang an event on certain days like that, I think it's always something positive. We do do an annual Bloomsday event, which is a James Joyce event. And just for transparency, Origin traditionally has done a lot of European theatre, even though it does do the first Irish festival every year. I've been concentrating more and more on just Irish work for now, because when it comes to fundraising, that's where most of our funders are. And it's really difficult to reinvent the wheel every time you decide to do a play from Sweden or the Netherlands to chase down new funding for all that. So I'm focusing on chiefly Irish-based work for now. So we do have a Bloomsday event, which happens every June, which is always quite successful. It's always taking place at Bloom's Tavern, which is on 58th Street, which is the wrong side of the border for the Upper East Side. But this year I'm thinking of doing an event outside of the actual bar. In the summertime is the perfect time to do outdoor events. And Bloomsday, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, Bloomsday is a celebration of the James Joyce novel Ulysses. And it can get a little intellectual. It's a bit too intellectual for me sometimes. So I always appreciate adding as much theatre as possible to it. So perhaps some sort of a Bloomsday event somewhere like Carl Schultz Park could be something that we could really kind of throw our weight behind. That's next June. And the one thing I will say that I have learned over the last year and a half in this new job is that these things take a lot of time, and trying to put things together, you know, with a couple of weeks in advance generally kind of falls flat. So, you know, long term, I'm thinking maybe next June for Bloomsday, which would be something that the community board and Origin could kind of work together on here on the Upper East Side. Bloom's Tavern will be involved, but that doesn't mean that we have to have the reading there. That could be the place that we could all go to celebrate afterwards.
So when you're thinking of Valentine's Day, are you thinking about 2023 or 2024?
Well, I'm just thinking Valentine's Day didn't even cross my radar. And just again, for transparency, I'll be on stage at the Rep
okay.
when Valentine's Day is happening. But that's not to say that we can't come up with some sort of an event, come up with something that could be theatrical in nature. I do have staff working with me who can work on production management on these kind of events. So, I mean, immediately, like I said, I wasn't coming in here thinking of anything to do with Valentine's Day, but it is a really fun day. And I think it could be lovely to kind of have something going on in the neighborhood. I was just listening to you talking about the different churches there. If they're accessible for people, it could be something nice that we can kind of maybe put our heads together and figure out.
If you have anything in mind, then why don't you could send it to me. I'm used to reading scripts from my prior life, ideas, and we could think about something short on or around Valentine's Day. There's also the space above Ryan's daughter, where I attended something. It's small and obviously attendance is quite limited, but it's a place. So maybe something
that could be fun. Yeah, there is another space in the neighborhood that I've been checking up on them recently. It's the former and I don't want to give anybody any nightmares when I mention this word, but it's the former space that the saloon was located at on York Avenue. And I know they were very well known to the community board through the years for not the nicest reasons. But I know someone has gone in there and they're currently in the process of renovating it. They've been in there for the last year or so. And basically, I don't know if they've been to the board yet. I did recommend them to reach out to the board. But basically, they're installing like a community event type of space. It sounds very, what's the word I'm looking for? It sounds very benevolent towards the neighborhood in nature. And they're very interested in doing theatre events. From what I know, they're still in the process of renovating, but that's also another place I think could be a real kind of crown jewel for these kind of events once they're up and running. And I think, like I said, I don't know if they've been in touch with the community board, but I think it could be something nice. It's up here on York Avenue, which is a little bit out of the way, but again, it services part of the community, which has to travel to get to other parts of the city for theatrical events. Ryan's daughter, of course, I've got connections there still. I know they're always interested in being involved. They're actually involved in First Irish this year. as a pub partner. I've managed to reach out and recruit a whole load of former colleagues in the bar business to help sponsor and support the festival. So any way we can get funding in is really, really helpful. But,
Well,
but yeah,
I was just going to say, from prior conversations with the borough president's office, we're restricted in that we can't be a part of any money charging admission or a requirement that people buy drinks. If there's a bar and people want to, that's fine, but we can't be part of a mandatory cover or mandatory amount of food or drink.
Does that mean you can't support events that might be going on if they're like say in nature, like Origin, for instance, is a non-for-profit. So essentially we are a 501c3 charity. If monies is coming in because people are paying for tickets to see an event at a certain place, does that mean the community board can't support that?
I have to ask about that. We can't present something, so I'm not sure. I have to talk to the borough president's office about that.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I understand that. And I know there's different ways of kind of trying to figure this sort of stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can reach out to one of the people that I work with here who does our production management basically for Bloomsday, and see if she has some ideas for something along the lines of a Valentine's Day type of theatrical celebration. Could be an evening of reading poetry. It could be even something like, even last year at Bloomsday, we did a Bloomsday quiz, which people really enjoyed. So if it was something even along the lines of that, where it's for Valentine's Day, where it's like a romantic type of quiz, incorporating with some people coming along and performing some of Shakespeare's most romantic sonnets or
monologues from upbeat or downbeat things, some music, that would be something nice.
Upbeat is where we're going at the moment. There's a lot of downbeat in theater right now, and we're trying to swim upstream from all the
that is
doom and gloom.
Yeah, I've seen some doom and gloom recently, but that would be good. Okay, so then let's stay in touch about that and figure out what may be workable. Okay, so, and that for Will and Robert is far less work and far less involvement than putting on an art show or a craft show. Okay, so we have, I think, the winter pretty covered. In terms of the spring, if we want to be outdoors, we need to be safe about being outdoors, which is most likely mid-May and beyond. Should we pick a date for the June art show?
What are the date options? I don't have a June calendar.
Well, I think the week after, maybe 2 weeks after Memorial Day or beyond, there's music, there's New York music Rita's always talked about, but I think that's on the weekday. I think that's June 21st. Once we start moving past Memorial Day, we have Saturdays of people leaving the city, but kids are still in school in June, so in public schools anyway. So we did our last 2 spring shows in June, and those worked well. I think the last one was June 10th, June 11th.
If that date has worked well, why not do well, I'm looking at June 10th is a Saturday.
Yeah, so we could, what do you think, guys, think about June 10th?
Yeah,
It's okay. And then June the 11th is the rain date.
Yeah. And we could talk about money for music. I think music is more essential when it's a smaller show, and then it just makes it livelier. If we have as many artists as we had this time, then I don't think we need it. And I think it's hard to have it loud enough to reach Second Avenue or Third Avenue. And certainly all of the activity is pretty attention drawing anyway, but music is a nice thing. I am talking to JREC about either having the JREC students perform at our next show. So now that we have a date, that's good. And then also maybe doing something with JREC with those students, because at least the musical theater were so lively and engaging. They drew a crowd of visitors to the art show last June. So that might be something to do for an afternoon. It could be at JREC or it could be outside on James Cagney Place, because they're not really dancing in stilettos. So it's that might be a fun thing, and including a public school is certainly, I think, a compelling reason to do something.
Well, maybe there could be something in conjunction with the Origin Theater Company, same performance, something like that. Because as I said, it's nice to have music at an art show, but it's clearly not needed. I mean, people will
Mhm.
come.
Sorry about the background phone. It always happens during a Zoom, even if it's just 5 minutes, it's probably spam. In any event, that's a good idea, Peggy. We should see if they will work, if there's a way to combine the two, for sure. And otherwise, I'm trying to schedule a meeting with the coordinator of all of that, and they have all of their different arts or music programs or performing arts are run separately by different faculty members. So we're trying to coordinate a meeting with a number of people to sort out some dates or ideas, and then I'll come back to everyone with those. And Gail, salsa.
Okay,
can't
we
forget
have a
that.
salsa instructor. So now what I have to do is speak with her in June and find out her availability, not in June, excuse me, in January. She's not going to know until then because she does a lot of performances, works with the Parks Department. She also said that some groups have secured funding through the Parks Foundation. So what I wanted to do was call Felice and Judy, since they're the co-chairs, and excuse my phone, of the Parks Committee, and just let them know that I'm doing that outreach, just so it doesn't look as if we're doing something and we're not doing it in concert with them. Judy particularly may have contacts there, and see if there's a way that we can get this underwritten. And if it's underwritten by the Parks Foundation, I think we'll be fine.
If it's underwritten
help
by
us with the location, because we have to find out where is the best place to be able to have this type of dance instruction.
We had talked about doing something on the Esplanade, which is very public and very well visited. So we could think about that. If it's underwritten by the Parks Department, then a park would make sense. St. Catherine's, I think, I know I went there. Because it's right next to JREC, they have some open space there that's pretty visible from the street, and it's a flat surface. It doesn't have as much not grouting, but mortar as the bricks over at James Cagney, and it's not slanted. So that might make it better for dancing. So I think Zachary found out that there's a list that you have to apply, and the Parks Department with a specific date. So once you find out when the salsa instructor is available, I think we could then look to the Parks Department, either through the Parks Committee, through the office, and find what availability might be for St. Catherine's Park or any of the other areas around. I don't know which parks have space.
Okay. Well, I'll check that out. I'll get on that as soon as possible, just so that we get a handle. How long does it take to get a permit? Can we get one as part of the community board? I'm just not certain what the answers are, but
well, number one, we all should confer with Judy Schneider. She is extremely active in St. Catherine's Park. In terms of getting approvals, so to get a permit, you go to the board office. The board office will provide the form to fill out. You have to pay a fee of, I forgot, 40 or 20 or something. You have to pay a fee that may or may not be waived because you're a community board. A few years ago, when we did an event in the Queensboro Oval, we ended up having to pay, but it may not always be the case. But in any case, you fill out the form. It takes, it gets processed pretty quickly, but you have to have a specific date. So we'd have to settle on the date before you fill out the form.
Okay, I'll see if she can give me that ahead of time, not have to wait until January. I'll call her.
Yeah, Judy would know if there's anything planned.
I'll call Judy.
Yeah, Judy would, yeah, and I would say my own view is that you'd want to wait till at least May. It's cold in
Yeah, it has to be
April.
May or very
Yeah.
late May, but not during Memorial Day or
Right,
sometime in June.
yeah.
And then we also had talked about another kind of dancing, jitterbug, or I know
West
you have-
Coast swing or something like that.
Something
I
like
have
that.
another instructor that probably can help with that.
So is that something that we want to talk about for the summer or wait until September?
I'd wait until September. I think we should try to spread our things out. So it's still
Yeah.
going to be warm in September after Labor Day, mid-September.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see what kind of a turnout first
we
of
get.
all we
Mhm.
get for this. Unfortunately, we didn't get much of a turnout for tango.
Tango.
Salsa would likely be quite a bit more popular. Swing, you don't know. It could swing either way. And yeah, there's no sense putting a lot of effort into something that isn't really hot, but salsa would be good.
Well, and if salsa works really well and we get a magnificent turnout, we can always repeat it in the fall.
Yeah.
So that's another, possibility. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to, I know it's only October still, do we want to, well, I guess we could meet again in January, February and talk about whether there's anything that we want to proceed with over the summer in the heat and the potential lack of crowds, but there's still a lot of people in the area that are around in the summer. But in the meantime, between the crafts and if we could do something with the theater in February, and then we have just a couple months, 3 months till hopefully salsa and the art show, that's pretty good. And I know it's a lot of work for the office and for all of us, but now that we don't have to get tables and easels, it certainly takes a lot of the burden off. And I have to say that Matt Bauer has been terrific about bringing us a table all the time, so that we have it right there. He's just been very generous and done that. Peggy?
Yeah, I was just thinking, and this is a question for Liz. Yeah, so how is it June or is it July? There's the opening up of Fifth Avenue for the mile walk among museums. I forgot.
The museum
Yeah.
mile is the middle of June, like
Is
usually
there-
5th, 14th of June or so.
Yeah, is there any way we should be involved with that or hooking up with that or some other connection to a museum per se? If not, it's fine. I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask.
I don't honestly know. So let me give it some thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're a bit off of Museum Mile, so we're not as involved as, others might be, and especially now that we're on Madison, but, let me think about that.
It's a good idea, Peggy. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, sure.
Someone had suggested doing an art tour of Roosevelt Island with Judy Birdie, who runs the historical archives there. She puts out a really very, very interesting newsletter on a daily basis, pretty much. But Roosevelt Island prides itself on its involvement and interest in the arts. They have some galleries, they have a lot of artistic people. So maybe that's something to do. I know they have Cherry Blossom Festival, but that's crazy crowded. So that's in April, it's beautiful, but that's not, I think, an ideal time to do that. But maybe you don't have to since you're not sitting outside, it doesn't have to be quite as warm as the art show or the salsa. And you could put on a jacket or something. So maybe if there's an interesting tour, walk, whatever we call it, we could do something in the beginning of May or the end of April on that. And it would just be nice to do something, I think, with Roosevelt Island, who often gets left out of Upper East Side, mainland Manhattan type stuff. But I'll talk to Judy and the Roosevelt Island reps.
They're doing something the end of this year at Kohler, an art show.
I don't, they might well be. I don't know. I'm even on the task force, but I know I've heard references to something, but don't remember.
Yeah, no, because I'm
specifically.
on her email blast. So I can forward this to you,
Okay,
you know.
thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good thing to publicize too. But it's nice to, I think, include Roosevelt Island, and they are an independent place that does thrive on their relationship to the arts. Okay. Any other ideas or comments moving forward?
I had a question. I think the art show went like really, really well, like perfectly well. I tried to talk to all the artists. I think I got like almost all of them. I mean, this is crazy for New York. There wasn't one single complaint. Like, how crazy is that? They were so happy. They were so thankful for having that opportunity. The feedback from them was saying that they were selling more at this show than they do for shows that they that are very competitive to get into, and they have to spend money for a table. A lot of them were selling out. They didn't bring enough with them. They weren't prepared for how well it was going to be. I was also wondering, I think it went perfect. And I would say if you replicated that every time, I think that would be great. But I was wondering if you guys had an idea of like what the perfect amount, the number of artists were that you would ideally like to have next time. And if maybe you want to focus now that you have like a really good, because most of them said that they were interested in coming back. Now that you have a really good base for future shows of artists coming back, that maybe you kind of focus the artists open call to a local CB8 artist. So it's like very community focused. So it's like more like local kind of outreach to get the artists. But yeah, I was wondering what you thought was like a good number, the same that you had, or more or less.
I think we could support more. I mean, I think the more artists there are, the more publicity, the more interest, the more the energy that it features, that which draws in more people. And we have the whole street really all the way up to Third Avenue. And so there's a lot more space potentially for artists because we were on both sides of the streets and it went up maybe halfway. So I think we could have more. We did try to reach out specifically to the Upper East Side. It's just that our reach is limited to people who are already interested in governmental affairs, which is why they sign up to the community board, and the people who are interested in getting the elected officials' newsletters because they get the flyers. So it's a specific kind of group, I think, and people who are not government focused may not have any idea about it. So if anyone has thoughts on reaching out to people, I think that would be useful. I know, Marissa, that you talked to the Y, but they don't seem particularly cooperative.
I mean, I know that when we were at the show, I told you that I was also asking all the artists, you know, how did you hear about this? Because I reached out to so many people, so many organizations, like so many kind of community leaders in like the sense of social media that maybe it's hard to explain, but there's just social media groups that are very like community based. And I reached out to the kind of like the leaders, the admins of them, and asked them to promote it, to post about the event. And what I found when asking the artists of like, how did you get here? There was a good amount that came back, some for like the third show with you guys. And then it was kind of all across the board. There was no one thing of where I posted or where I reached out that had more. It was kind of like somebody from every single way that I posted, which was surprising to me. And yeah, I didn't hear anyone from the Y, which surprised me because I even went there in person and handed them the flyers and put it up on their bulletin board.
Yeah, but they're not very, they just are not as integrated into the community board as some other entities like Liz at the Frick are.
But sorry. I also wanted to say that I think the strategy that I used of how to promote for the artists and also how to promote to get people to the show so that the community was aware of it, you can use to kind of promote any of the other other events that you have that you're planning for the February event and for any of the dance classes that you want to do. And especially after this show and using that, I've gotten so many messages now after thinking about the show, like the artist saying it was great, or just comments on the post saying how much fun people had visiting. And then people even commenting, how do I come to the next one? So I think as you continue to do it and continue to use those ways to reach out, I think that you might have a problem of too many people in the future.
Well, then we'll have to sub any submissions and subtract about a third. Peggy?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that it seems as if we got a raft of applicants after Marissa put her notice in Facebook. And social media tends to be a very good way to publicize beyond the borders of the CB8 regulars. And so I would say social media is going to be key from now on. The other thing I want to say quickly is I do wish we could start earlier with reviewing the contributions and soliciting contributions earlier than we do. I'm sure that Will would probably feel the same way. And so why don't we just plan to start soliciting contributors much earlier than we do. I know that, the Gracie Square Art Show reviews its solicitors months before the show, and it helps make everything go more smoothly. But in terms of the board office, it seems like it would help a lot too. And then we'd be able to get a good gauge whether we need more people, just how to plan for further promotion of it if we know well in advance how many we really are expecting, the core group that we're expecting.
So that's a really good point. So right now, let's pick a submission date. We'll figure out who is going to do a flyer, and then let's figure out a submission date. The office sends the submissions when they're received, I think, which includes any extensions that we have. So we should have a date and then allow a little bit of time for an extension if we don't get enough submissions, and then just time to review. We're not really vetting in the same way that the Carl Schurz Art Show vets. We're really looking for appropriateness or inappropriateness as the case is. So it's a different kind of process, but I think you're right. And I'm sure the office would appreciate doing it in advance and giving us enough time, and then we can assess the situation.
And one last quickie is, sorry, Gail.
It's okay.
The artists would also like to know well in advance so they can plan their schedule, especially if it's a summer show or early fall show. There are other shows that they might want to participate in, so they plan a schedule. So the sooner we can get going, the better.
So if we're talking about a craft show, we also have not really reached out to so many crafting people. It's been more artists who may have note cards that to me count as a craft. So we need to reach a different group of people. Gal, did I cut you off?
No. Continue, and then I'll make my point.
I think that's it. So we want to make sure that we reach people that we might not have reached because we were focused more on arts than crafts, and to give enough time to see how many submissions we get. And also, when you inquire, for all of those who are inquiring with churches or community centers, we should find out how many people they might be able to hold, so we know how many artists to look for, because we might not have enough space for, let's say we got 60 or 80 submissions. We might not have room for 40 or 50 people if they need tables to spread out their wares, or and they're locked into an indoor space. But go ahead.
Well, my other thought, based on what Marissa said, and of course we'd have to get a sign off from the artist, but if we've got some great testimonials, in addition to having the flyer talking about the art show, we can have a companion piece as to why people really do, who are artists, want to participate. I mean, their testimonials can go a long way. If another artist is kind of, well, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, and suddenly you read the remarks of 2 or 3 artists who did participate, who found that they were more successful than in certain shows where they had to pay, that were juried, what have you. I think that that also is another way to attract people that we might not have been able to reach in the past.
That's a good idea. Marissa, could you collect some since you
Yeah,
have-
that's a great idea. I think all these ideas are gonna make it. I think the next show you guys have are gonna have such a huge outturn just from the word of mouth of how positive it went. Like everyone was so excited to be there, and I watched the crowd. It felt like a community because everyone was kind of chatting, getting to know each other. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, is to have the testimonials like on the promotion for it.
And the public liked it because they bought. So that's always a
Yeah.
good
Oh
sign.
my gosh. Yeah. There was a painting I bought a few pieces, and there was this one painting I wanted. And I was like, I'm going to come back once I talk to everyone. And when I went back, it was gone.
Oh, yeah, I know. I saw something too. And I was able to watch from where the community board table was and see when it was sold. So I know, but I think it's good. There was a wide variety. And also Marissa had the idea the day of the show. We printed as she created it. I printed it out. She posted it. It's just said today with an arrow down to the flyer so that people would, and in big letters, so that people saw that it was today, and maybe that got some people too. She just posted it right around the show.
Yeah, that was your idea. Well, you kind of I was thinking of remaking it, and then you're like, let's just add it on top. And I think that's such a good idea, especially if for any of the events that you do, if you already have the flyers around in the area, you just add, and you can even do it instead of printing on a whole piece, you can kind of do 2 on a piece and then cut them and just tape it onto above each piece, like something bright, like yellow or red, so it catches the eye. I've never seen that done before, but that was like a really good idea of yours.
Well, thank you. I don't remember that part, but I think we're getting the hang of doing this, which is good. So since it's almost 5 o'clock and I know the office is eager to go, and I could see Will in the corner there. So I think, who wants to work on a draft of the craft show flyer? Any takers?
I'd be happy to do it
Okay.
if you have a layout of like what you want.
Why? Okay, so I'll send around, we'll work on text, and then in terms of a design, we do that. And I think that maybe for a background, we have the blue connected with the art show. Maybe we should do something different, related but different for the craft show. But we'll work on that.
Is it going to be maybe like if it's Valentine's related, like pink or red? I don't know.
We could do that, but if we want to do, I like the idea of branding with the Pavlovian response. You see blue, CB8 art show. Maybe I'm being optimistic here. Red, maybe, because that's a color that works all year round. It's not like red and green or orange and black or something specific to holidays. But those are details. Once we have the main design, we could figure out the various colors. So I'll send around something to get started and then look for editing. Anything else, you guys? Everyone? Okay. Well, thank you.
I sent around the spreadsheet from whenever we did our baseline discussion. I would just remind you guys to go back in, look at that, spend some time with it, open it up and look at the dates and the schedule. And so think about that in advance so that you're not, up against the wall of a timeline. So I resent it to you guys so it's fresh in your inbox.
Okay.
But as you're thinking about these things, please go in and look at that.
Okay.
Well, a quick comment, then should we pick a submission date for the craft?
That's what I was trying to get at earlier and then got distracted. Thanks, Peggy. Yes, let's pick a submission date. So let's work backwards. So February 11th is the show. We probably want submissions. I would say maybe the first Saturday in January, and that gives us a couple of extra weeks if we need more craftspeople, and that's still 2 months from now.
Well, can we make it even closer to now? The more time, the
Christmas?
better.
Then I don't know, somehow it seems like 6 or 8 weeks seems far removed
Well,
from
let's
that.
ask, how about asking Will? I mean, Will, are you there? Hi.
Yeah, I'm
So,
here.
just trying to, we're picking a submission date. The problem about, I would say something in December, but everybody's so focused on holidays in December, maybe January, but that's right after the holidays.
Remember, you can always have an extension deadline. So you
Mhm.
can have like a first deadline and then
Yeah.
a second harder deadline.
So Christmas is a Sunday, the 25th. So we could say Friday, the 16th of
So
December.
when we discussed our like baseline schedule, it was a 12-week schedule, so a 3-month schedule basically, and week 8 was our original deadline, so that's 1 month prior to the date of the art show or the event. So you'd be talking about, mid-January.
Well, then why don't we, also people might be showing, there might be craft shows and they might not know what they would have. But maybe the first Saturday in January, so January 7th. And then we could extend if necessary to the 21st, which is still 3 weeks out. Gail?
Well, why don't we have the date? Why don't we have a save the date flyer? We don't even have to do much more than say, this is going to be the date of the craft show, calling all crafters and all, so that as soon as possible, let people know that there's going to be a craft show on this date, and that something about submissions welcomed, and put the date. We don't have to say that you can't submit until January. What if somebody says, oh, I'm so excited, I want to get my name out there right now? That's another way of doing it. Because if we're really talking about 3 months, and we're talking about folks that we've had some participation at the art show, but not that much. So how do we find the other people and the different types of crafts? In that sense, I think Peggy's completely correct. The sooner we get the word out, because it helps us, and we can work on the language, kind of help us with the solicitation.
So, okay, so let's pick a date. And then I just want to say something, because I was on Governor's Island a couple of weeks ago, and they had a very, very, very mini kind of craft show. So what date then are we looking? So we could do a save the date for February 11th, and then what date and that should address your concern too, Peggy, so that people are starting to think about it. Then we have submissions. I would hope that nothing is too pornographic or too violent that's submitted, but you never know. So so it's either going to be something like, I think the 16th, the 23rd is just too close, I think, to Christmas to ask for submissions. So it's either December 16th, maybe the following Monday, the 19th, or else we're in January. So
Maybe the 19th is good.
The 19th, I think we might as well go with that as a submission date, and we can, as Marissa points out, we can have extensions and then have the hard stop.
Yeah. Plus, you can get an idea. Do we have too many artists? Do we need a lot more? And then you can take from there if we need to extend. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so my question, so then let's do that. Let's have December 19th, that's the Monday. And then we'll play it by ear for needing more after that. What about, so at the craft show, I got some people's cards, but also there seem to be consortiums of crafters. These are not Upper East Side people, but they were obviously not Governor's Island people either. They're from all over the city. I restricted my gathering of cards to people in the city, but there seems to be a consortium or several of craft people. should we reach out to them and ask if they're, if people associated with them would be interested, or should we target Upper East Side people first and then see if we need other people? Peggy?
Well, I want to say in conjunction with that, maybe we have to have some kind of vague idea of how many people we want first. The reason I say that is because this is going to be an indoor show. So we should have a concept of, I don't know, I mean, I would not think we'd want more than, say, 50 if it's in a hall, a church hall or some kind of a hall. And so do you think it would be good to put out the save the date first and see how many responses we get? Or
Unless we include, I mean, I guess on save the date, we could include just a general submit and then the info@cb8m.com without having a date attached and see if we get anything. And
I think that you guys will, especially if I post on social media, I think that getting the artists, and if you want to do crafters, I don't think this will be a problem at all.
Okay. We need to find language to limit it to crafts more.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If I just do post that, I make a post and I say calling all Upper East Side or, you know, Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island crafters, like reach out for this for an event, and you just start with that, then you'll get those people, like you'll get exactly who you're calling. And I think that it'll be like a really a great response from just doing that. Like I don't think you'll have to worry about getting enough.
If I might say, I think the problem isn't getting enough. I think we want to make sure that you know, we had 92 responses, although they didn't show up, but yeah, humongous number of responses to the art show. Since it's indoors in somebody's facility, I think we better make sure we have a cap, though. Do you think roughly 50?
We can say space is limited.
Yeah.
And not tell people what the cap is, and then see. And if we have enough time, we're able to do more outreach to the craftspeople, you know, really find out if somebody's just not going to show up. So I think that helps us too.
That's a very effective marketing technique. When all of those shows that sell stuff or the late night TV commercials, when they want people to inspire people to pick up the phone and call and order, they say, if the line is busy, please keep trying. And that is, or our operators are limited or quantities are limited. That really motivates people to call. So maybe saying that we'll get 200 crafters. There's also a wide range in quality, having been to juried shows and non-juried shows. But let's see what we start with. And again, I don't think we could vet on that basis, but it'll be interesting to see what we get. All right. So then, Marissa, do you want to work on a save the date kind of thing? It should just be a mini version of what you ultimately come out with as a flyer, I think. And
I'm happy to do that unless someone else wanted to. Yeah.
I think you're it.
Okay. No, I said yes, assuming that nobody wants to, but then I just realized like maybe somebody wants to, so I didn't want to.
No, it's okay. I think you're it. And we'll just work on language, and there will be probably a bunch of drafts or iterations of it, because that's kind of how I work and that's how we work. And I know it can be a very frustrating process. So thank you for your patience in advance. Okay, then. All right. So we'll have the submission date of December 19th and room to spare if we need it. And thank you, everyone. Thank you in advance, Will and Robert, for helping us come up with a successful craft show, as you did with the art show. I think all of us deserve a lot of pats on the back, and I don't want the office to go unmentioned. So, and that was kind of obnoxious saying all of us, but anyway, that's how it was. So thank you all, and to the public and to the board members who came, and all of that. So thank you guys. And anything else, we're all around by email. I know Jason just joined, and Nikki, you're here from the public. I don't know if we've met, but if you have any comments, now's a good time. And if not, we'll see you at the next meeting. Okay, then we'll see you at the next meeting. And in the meantime, if you know any crafters, get them to submit images, and we'll see each other soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks, Will.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.